Hi. So, Clayton Christensen defines disruptive innovation as a process by which a product or service takes root at the bottom of the market, then moves itself upwards relentlessly, and thereafterwards eventually displacing its more established competitors. Well, according to this definition, this beautiful man beside me is just that, a disruptor. For he does take root at the bottom of the market, which is often underserved. He moves himself upwards relentlessly and eventually displacing some of his more established competitors. Fortunately, history has afforded us better examples of disruptive innovations, including our beloved personalized computers, mobile phones, and my favorite, Netflix. Because we know we have the perfect excuse now to avoid social engagements. But let's ask ourselves the real question, like, why do we even care about disruptive innovation? What purpose does it serve? Well, you see, I come from a long line of nomads. I do. So as pastoralists, my grandparents and their parents moved across the country according to weather patterns that they had mastered. They had mastered these weather patterns so well that they became quite fond of them to a degree where they actually named their children after the season. So if you're Somali, you probably have about 5 uncles and 3 cousins who are all called rainfall. But things have changed significantly. They really have. And this is due to recurring droughts and the breakdown of wet and dry seasons. But what all this means is that pastoralist is worse off than he has ever been before, right? So their way of life is being threatened, a way of life that forms the basic of who they are, the basic of Somali traditions, our clan system, our common laws, and also how many camels make a worthy dowry. Do not accept less than 100, because then you know that he is just being cheap. But that's all to say that these guys once had the information in their hands. They did. But they no longer have it, and that's why their way of life is disrupted. Well, this is where disruptive innovation can actually play its biggest role. Because what it can do, what it can really do, is take that information and put it back in their hands at a faster, cheaper rate than established traditional mechanisms. Now, what if that pastoralist that I just showed you, what if he had an SMS text message in his hand that told him important, early warning and climate-sensitive information? What does that do? That puts the power back in his hands. He has the information to act and actually manage his risks as he desires. Now, this is just one example of how disruptive innovation is changing the field and transforming lives. Come to our session and learn about how it's doing all of that, but also helping us understand risk. Social media activity peaks at disasters. This information is gold. It allows us to actually have access to what the user needs. But this information is hardly ever used, because there's no one there to analyze and interpret it. But what if we did? What if we can take that information and put it in the hands of actual decision makers? IBM Watson, which is a cognitive computing system, is being used in so many fields. Cancer research, it's being used in Jeopardy. But what this can do is it can help that expert that sat in a DRM agency in Africa somewhere, let's say Nairobi, and a scientist who sat in the University of Nairobi. What they can do is mine through hundreds and thousands of scientific data and actually be able to create meaningful risk information by them and for them. This is just 2 of the exciting tools that we'll be showcasing at our session with wonderful presenters who will actually be able to better help us understand risk, but also be able to show us why disruptive innovations are not just important, but they're actually vital, they're critical. Well, why? Because what they do is they actually empower local communities. They give them power back. right? They give them a sense of self-sufficiency, a sense of urgency. And more importantly, what it really does, is it allows them to lead a way of life that is not only dear to their very hearts, but at the very, very, very foundation of who they are. Thank you.